Welcome everyone, my name is Dr. Angel Acosta. This is Capacity Building with the Acosta Institute. And I'm just so excited to have this episode with a few of our Acosta Institute fellows. Our Acosta Institute Fellowship program is a 6-month intense incubator for people in education, business, and technology who want to be part of a community of folks who are thinking about how to transform their work and the world through a healing-centered perspective. So through 6 months, they get a chance to meet other fellows and build community. They get a chance to get deep, comprehensive one-on-one coaching, and they get a chance to participate in all of our programming. We have virtual certificate programs, workshops, conferences, and then we also have an in-person retreat at the Garrison Institute. So just really excited to have a conversation. So today we have EE, we have Shaina, we have Darnese, and we have Chris, all of whom are fellows in our second cohort. Right now we have about 60 to 70 fellows across 2 cohorts, and just really excited to sit in this conversation with you for. The first thing I wanted to kind of check in with you all is any insight around how the fellowship has been for you, and in terms of your work and your development so far. Let's start with EE and then Shaina.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in gratitude. I believe that words of gratitude amplify and attract more good things to come. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. The fellowship has, I don't know, it's magic. You know, it's been a portal to accessing some of the universe's magic. It's really brought in a counter vortex to the catastrophes of the world. This is a space where I know that I'm going to be with like-minded people I share values with, people who are going to have a different perspective, a different take on what's happening in the world, and also people who are not just all about critique and about, like, we're not just going to vet, we're actually here to do something together. And that feels really important to me right now. I think that's the thing that's keeping me going. It's like, I'm not going to solve the world's problems, but I'm doing my little thing, and the grounding and the perspective and the portal to magic that this fellowship has provided for me keeps me going.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out around not just venting. Venting is important, critique is important, and analyzing the ways in which the systems that are unfolding, how they generate inequality, oppression, it's important. But we also need to learn how to build and offer alternatives. So thank you for that, EE. I also want to invite Sister Chrissy. So we're going to add Sister Chrissy to this conversation as well. She's a wonderful fellow from Chicago. And let's have Shaina go next, and then Chrissy.
Yeah, I think you kind of set the tone. And as you stated, thank you for making space for this and making space for our voices first. The grounding is what I would describe this as in a time that I needed it. I knew I needed this. I wanted this, but I didn't know exactly what I needed until I was here. So just had to call it out and say it. Lots of transition, lots of observation, lots of lack of action, and this is a room and a space filled with action. There's ways you can go about it, right? But everyone in here comes with the optimism for what we want the future to be. And what has been grounding for me is pulling on my ancestors and my elders to move forward. And also pulling on your ancestors, hearing the stories, hearing the journeys, the different sessions from day one has been very humbling. Also hearing the interconnections to the work that I'm working on around getting below the surface. Um, uh, excavation is key. Uh, the research around it, not just with AI, but around learning about each of the different fellows, the guest, you, Dr. Acosta, just digging into the work that each person is doing that has this thread through it. We're all interconnected, which in essence is the grounding. And I'm just very appreciative in this moment because briefly stated, there's lots of turbulence, not just across the climate, but also within our professions. And acknowledging that, accepting that, and also creating the actions from that. Like, how are we going to move forward? How do you move through this? How do you still keep your mission first? And also addressing the psychological safety. I'm very just appreciative of the knowledge that I'm gaining that helps me help others as well as help and heal myself, both professionally and personally.
Thank you so much for that, Shayna. Um, as you were talking, it brought me back to I used to work for a nonprofit for almost 10 years around the country helping low income students get access to higher education. And I spent a lot of time in my early research days looking at some of the best research to help young people think about the future, but also like help people just develop for the future. Something you said really struck me that I'm going to share in a moment. But I want to say that EE, Shayna, and Chrissy have a lot in common when it comes to developing curriculum and when it comes to researching and education. So as you three kind of came to my mind as you were talking. So this research bit, I'll just take about 30 seconds to share, comes out of public health. They did this comprehensive research on public health, especially around both low-income communities of color, but also poor rural communities throughout the United States. I spent a lot of time in rural communities, in Appalachia, in North Dakota, and like I would drive to the Lakota Sioux Nation's middle schools in South Dakota, in North Dakota, and then I would go to Bourbonville or Marlboroville in southeastern Kentucky. So the finding, what they said was that the hardest thing and the most dangerous thing when it comes to impacting children and people's conception of their potential and the effort they put into changing themselves in the world, sometimes it's not even lack of resources, it's unclear pathways. I'm like, what? So just not having a clear path, not having a clear path, a mentor, someone in the family who went to college, somebody in the family who actually has a job in the corporate world, or that has more damage to the trajectory of people developing than anything else. And the way that I integrate that now with you talking about grounding, Shayna, is that when I hear you, when I hear EE, when I hear all the fellows talk about all that you're doing, it gives me pathways. It shows me pathways. Even if you're in a different lane or if a different kind of field, it's a pathway that's a possibility for me. So that's another layer to this fellowship work, is that you're surrounded by multiple pathways that are possibilities for your own development. Chrissy?
I love that you were talking about pathways because as like E and Shayna have been talking about, just the gratitude for having the space because, I transitioned from public education 4 years ago. And the first thing I thought about is like, how do this pivot, I wasn't expecting it and I know I needed it. So how do I create space for it? And now that I'm in the nonprofit space and working in trauma responsiveness within schools and communities, the part that I was questioning is like how to look at this from potential and possibility. Like, yes, we know that there's stress and there's trauma and there's pain, but it's not a binary. There's also joy and there's hope and there's there's beauty in the world. And so how do we balance those things and honor those things? And so when I saw the information about the fellowship, I actually reached out to a cohort member from cohort one, Elvira Salazar, and I asked her about her experience. And when she was talking about it, it drew me to be curious. I'm like, this sounds so profound and so beautiful. I want to know more about it. And so what's been really inspiring and helpful and healing is that it's a space where you're listening to others, you're sharing stories, you're connecting in a way that's recognizing that there's so much possible out there, and there are people who are dreaming, but dreaming in a way that it's active. It's not just, oh, it's there and it's, oh, that might be nice, but it's like, no, let's make it real. And, when you and I met one on one, the first thing I started to talk about is like, I need to get comfortable with my voice. And so being able to even be here right now talking is simply from having the experiences and the exposures of listening to people's stories, recognizing that we have this shared humanity, that we're connected, even if we're not physically in the same shared space. And so that's given me the space to get comfortable with using my voice again in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I really just appreciated that, and knowing that, we're building this community together. And that was what I was also looking for, was a sense of community and connection with others. And that's possible through this fellowship.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Chrissy. And I want to note one thing you said around your pivot, like your pivot from higher education. I just want to note that because for everyone listening, but also for the fellows, both fellows who are in cohort one, cohort two, and future fellows, that you're a resource now. You're a resource of someone who made that pivot, right? The little simple tidbit is huge because now we know who to go to. When you finish a doctorate, like, you need to kind of make some moves, like, yo, Chrissy. Even though you're good, because you're still doing consulting, and so you're still in the system, but you're still kind of out of it. Darnese.
Thank you again. I don't want to reiterate what everyone said, but I think it's important for my voice to say thank you in this space. It's interesting, you said you were talking about pathways and how each of us kind of make you see pathways, which makes me think of Afrofuturism, right? It makes me think of what is the possibility beyond our very current. And when you just made that connection with Chrissy, right? And it illuminated that she is a pathway, not just in what she does in her current work, but that nuance you named is a pathway, because people are in higher ed and don't know how to transition out. People are in public ed and don't know how to transition out. And just our very lived experiences become pathways of possibility. And I think that for me is what the fellowship has done, is help me. It feels like poetry. That's what it feels like for me. Like this thing that can be nebulous or an amorphous to people can be shapeless. And yet when it's all on the paper, when it's all on the page, it's such beauty. That's what the fellowship has felt like. And each person is a line or a stanza, is a transition, right? And it's creating something really beautiful in the world. And when you live in your bubble, even though you are aware of what's outside of the bubble, to be connected, leaves like not only an imprint on me and an impression on me, but it makes me aware that the possibility isn't just something in my mind, that it's living in flesh. And all of these folks that I get an opportunity to meet are the embodiment of that flesh, right? To Chrissy's point, like I think about the concept of freedom dreaming. That's what it feels like we do together. That Robin Kelly's concept is not just a concept. It's realized in this space. That our technical imaginations, when I was thinking about the ways that each person is describing what they do, is like igniting in me something that I didn't know I need ignited. So I feel like that concept of possibility, the sense that this is poetry, and that we get to radically imagine and dream together, in what I would lastly describe as a safe harbor, right? In the tradition, the Black American tradition of like having a place that nobody gets, the gaze is not here. Um, in particular, in a context in our world right now, that we need a safe space to just be. And in the being comes this like germination of this poetry that evolves and so or emerges, and so that's exciting to me, but more importantly it like steadies my nervous system, that I know I have a place that I can go to be and also experience inspiration. um and that is very much because you followed what was calling you, you know, spirit, ancestors, and you embody that.
Hmm.
Even in our one-on-ones, you embody like what's the radical thing? What's the possible thing, Darnese? What's the thing? What's the question I can ask you that can bring you to that place? Um, and so I feel like whenever someone, I think someone said this, like not the hierarchy, I don't feel hierarchical at all. It feels very expansive and it feels exponential. Like we're moving from circle. I believe one of my cohort members was talking about circle, and the circle is just kind of like moving outward, and that feels safe in a time when it feels very unsafe.
Hmm. Yeah, so much there, so much there. Thank you for that the poetic framing. Many of you know that, you know, it's been a rough time for me. I'll just say that the last 5 years I've lost a major elder in my family, um, and it's been really hard, and you know the regular challenges of life, and because I'm surrounded by all of you, it's like it's kind of hard on a few levels. Like it's kind of hard to like get so caught up with like my challenges when I know when you all share some of your challenges, and I'm like, yo, like I'm going through this, but Shane over there is going through this. E is over there is going through that. So it's like there's a lot of what Tony Robbins called contrast thinking. It's a concept he uses in his like trainings, that sometimes we get so caught up in like, oh me, woe is me, and he says that contrast thinking is good. It's like, well, what is somebody else experiencing, you know, and that kind of. So and then also, you're also doing such great work. So it's like it's hard for me to experience despair for too long, because I'm just like cloaked in all this beautiful kind of energy. And then lastly, just to acknowledge that I firmly believe that the Institute has a spirit and agency in and of itself. Like as much as you know, a lot of this work comes out of my research, but so there's something to this conversation that was worth acknowledging, the ways in which the Institute is doing certain work here to evoke such poetry, to evoke such community. Chris?
Oh, hi. Um, to me, this is like a garden of flowers and plants, a community where I can retrieve to after my situation is I had a very active life of 40 years being in the film business, producing films, being creative, etc. Stopping this 10 years ago to immediately jump into the next thing, studying medicine, and realizing that that was a little bit too late, but just finished my degree in public health. And looking for ways of healing in all sorts of directions, but realizing suddenly I have to calm down, I have to slow down, I have to look into myself before I move on, because my life is limited, and I don't want to spend my next or last 20 years with overactivism, but more geared towards goals and aims which have to do with my community, my family, and starting as a fellow has thrown me back in a way to biographical learning, because suddenly I'm having the opportunity to look where I'm coming from, where my generational history is, my traumas, my healings, and that has basically stopped everything for now. And having this community to bounce all this off individually and also in a group is a God-given gift to help me grow into directions I hadn't thought I would be able to. And especially at a point in the world where I see that all the old things which I used to take for granted don't work anymore. I mean, I came from Germany. I'm a post-Holocaust, post-World War II child. I thought the world as I experienced it for the last 50 or 60 years consciously was not perfect, but was relatively peaceful and had conventions I could deal with. Today, I must say, there aren't any conventions anymore. It's all in the process of being taken apart, breaking apart, and I'm trying to figure out what the future holds and what from my past I can use to bring into the future in regard to healing, creating new things, and developing something which has not existed before, I feel.
Thank you, Chris. And you, for me, I think also represent a really important, a few folks in the fellowship, but you particularly because of your trajectory in your life. And, you know, for me, you represent a lot of courage of being able to reinvent yourself at this stage of your life. And so it's been really rich for me to watch you kind of be open to this moment of like, as Chrissy mentioned, like pivoting. Because in a way you're pivoting, you used to be a filmmaker and so many other roles, and now you're like trying to figure out like where do I go next? And that is, don't never underestimate how, on the one hand, how brave that is, and how much permission you're giving all of us when we get to that point in our development to say, hey, I could do another pivot, So thank you for that, Chris. Let's close out with a question I asked fellows in the last episode, and we'll just kind of jump in as your heart kind of calls you. And the question is like, what's the world you're trying to bring about with your work?
I'll just say freedom.
Mm-hmm.
People to be, live, breathe, move free. Real free, not conceptual free, not intellectual free, not just body free, but free, like spirit free. That is my heart, is what does it look like and feel like to be free, knowing that there's so much around us that can pull us into spaces where we feel bound, or where we feel locked in, or we feel, whether it is mental slavery, whether it is physical bondage because of sickness and disease. Like, I genuinely want people, no matter what stage of life, no matter what it is that they are grappling with or going through or navigating, to be able to move. We talk about joy that way, right? Like, joy is the constant, even if you're not always happy. I want freedom, right? I want people to feel a level of liberation, even when there's so many things that can bound us up in the world. And so I think about, I want to make sure I say my fellow's name correctly, Wanajuku.
Wajinku, yeah.
Wajinku. talked about all the interconnectedness. To me, that is the way to freedom.
Mm.
That is the way to freedom, is to recognize that everything is connected and everything feeds the next thing in a way that is useful and not usury, right? Is organic, and what I think our original purpose and and place was in the world, is in the world, is to um yeah, to just be able to move through this life while we are physically in this form, free, fully
Mm-hmm.
liberated. That is at the heart and soul of my work. And so this space starts with me. You can't lead where you haven't, gone, or you can lead while you get there. But I feel like it's so important for me to get free in the places that I long for others to get free. So this space and this group and this community is offering liberation for me, on all these levels. And so, yeah, that is ultimately what it is. It's all these other things I could say, but if it came down to it, what lives in the bowels of freedom is joy and laughter and and sunshine and water and rain and flowers and children, right? So what does it mean to curate the kind of conditions where freedom reigns?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Darnese. Who else wants to jump in there?
Well, I would say just two words which I've been focusing for the last years, which is mindfulness and heartfulness. And that relationship with each other encompasses, includes also what you just said, and Darnese, and I think, more beautiful as you were phrasing it. I couldn't do it. It was really wonderful. But that is included in what I'm striving for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else?
There's a poem in Spanish called In La Quech, and I'll say it in English, just for the purpose of this. And it is you are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. And when I walked away from public ed, I remember telling one of my former colleagues, I said, I'll know I've done well if I've been able to bring the humanity back to our work. But the further away I get from that statement, the more I think about it's not just about work, it's about within me, it's within us. It's a shared humanity. Can my humanity meet your humanity? And can we recognize it in one another? Because there's so much to consider in an expansiveness versus this like scarcity mindset that I think about like how if we start to really look at individuals, the ability to heal, and we look within, it actually has the ability to help spread that healing because we've done our inner work. So I really believe in that because, as Darnese was saying about like that freedom, that joy, I could feel that in her voice. And it was like, yes, that's it. Like that's to be able to think about it from the sense of expansion and love. Like we see the heaviness and there's so much lightness that's available to us as well. And we know that that lightness comes through all those cracks in the darkness. And so I just really believe in that wholeheartedly, is that if we can connect in that way of seeing one another's humanity, that creates that expansion of joy and hope and possibility. And it becomes more active.
Yeah, thank you, Chrissy. EE?
Oh, yes, plus one, ditto to all of that. Oh gosh, I can feel the freedom too. I want to borrow the words of Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's an indigenous scientist. She speaks plant and she translates plant to the rest of us humble humans. And she wrote, sometimes I wish I could photosynthesize so that just by being, just by shimmering at the meadow's edge or floating lazily on a pond, I could be doing the work of the world while standing silent in the sun. So that's the kind of world I can imagine where we don't have to hustle for our worth. We're not having to fight so hard just to be, just to exist, just to access what we need. where our worth is not measured by some sort of external metric, that every person can just be the miracle that they are. And that alone, just that energy of ease and like shimmering, like that alone is enough to do the work of the world. I would love that for every single person and every single life form on this planet.
Yeah, it's a powerful vision. Send me that quote when you get a chance. Shaina?
Yeah, I don't know if I have words that powerful. You all, I'm like, I'm at the edge of my seat. Like, absolutely. The one thing I would add is love of self. Something I hope to bring not to the world is so large, but definitely to my own child, is what was given to me, and what I stare at here in my office is what the prayers that have been passed through me, what has been instilled in me, and what people seen in me that they didn't even know I existed, right? I want future generations to feel that and to know that and to love that and know that that is self.
Mm.
So that's the work that drives me, is what I strive for. Um, and it is exactly what you started with, Darnese. It is that power of freedom. Because when you understand where you come from, do you know who built you, how you were designed before you were a sparkle, a seed. Ironically, it's all full circle from everything that you each said. Um, but but when you know that you are free, you recognize what you walk in and what you carry and what you pass on, what you give to the next, and that can't be taken from you. And I'm learning it every day. It's a hard, we go through so many things, yet it's all a part of our journey and a part of our path. And that's the ultimate for me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just a wonderful conversation with you all. And I'm just so grateful that we get the chance to be around each other more and be in community. For those of you watching, just send good energy to these fellows and to all of our fellows in the program. If you want to learn more about the Acosta Institute Fellowship, just go to acostainstitute.com and check out the fellowship landing page and learn more. We are now taking in applications for our next cohort starting in a couple of months. So yeah, just sending so much love to all of you watching, those of you who are here. Feel free to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. And we look forward to continuing, just have an impact in the community in this way. Thank you so much.